Hello. Our last topic was on heterotrophic nutrition. Now, whether nutrition is autotrophic or heterotrophic, it is required for production of energy to carry out different metabolic processes. But how come this energy will be derived from the food? The process by which this digested food is utilized in our body by breaking it down is known as respiration. Our topic for today. Now, respiration occurs in all living organisms. It is in fact one of the defining features of living organisms. Respiration occurs in all organisms, right from bacteria to most complex human beings. It occurs in plants, it occurs in different microbes, but in all these organisms, the method of respiration differs, and that leads us to the different types of respiration. Now, there are certain organisms which can derive the energy from the food they have consumed without using oxygen, and then there are organisms which require oxygen for producing energy from the food they have consumed. And on this basis, we get two types of respiration: aerobic and anaerobic. Air, A-E-R, air. Air is the original form of the term air which we use nowadays. So, we are talking of air, but actually we are just considering oxygen, whether oxygen is being used or not used. Previously, it was thought that in the presence of air, oxygen is respiration is going on, so it is aerobic respiration. In absence of air, respiration is going on, so it is anaerobic respiration. With advancement in sciences, it was clear to the scientists that basically it is the presence or absence of oxygen which determines the type of respiration, and we still continue with the words aerobic and anaerobic. Actually, aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic occurs in the absence of oxygen. Now, in both the cases, energy is being derived, but since oxygen is involved, in case of aerobic respiration, more energy is being released, while in case of anaerobic respiration, the amount of energy released is less. Now, this less or more energy is due to complete or incomplete oxidation of food. When incomplete oxidation of food occurs, it occurs in absence of oxygen. Obviously, it will result in less energy. When the food is broken down completely, it requires oxygen, and at that time more energy will be derived, and therefore the end products which are derived in case of both these types of respiration are also different. In case of aerobic respiration, the end products are carbon dioxide and water, whereas in case of anaerobic respiration, we get different products. We can get ethanol and carbon dioxide, we can get lactic acid, or we can get certain other acids also as the end product of anaerobic respiration. Now, within the cell, this process of respiration occurs, but where exactly the process is completed, that also depends on the presence or absence of oxygen. presence of oxygen requires a special organelle known as mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Whereas for anaerobic respiration, only cytoplasm is required. Mitochondria, in case of aerobic respiration, mitochondria is the last organelle where respiration is completed because oxygen is being utilized. But apart from mitochondria, aerobic respiration also occurs, or rather it starts in the cytoplasm. So aerobic respiration occurs in cytoplasm first and then mitochondria, but anaerobic respiration occurs only in cytoplasm. Obviously, for an organelle like bacteria, which is prokaryotic in nature, where mitochondria is absent, we assume that only it is anaerobic respiration that occurs in bacteria. Now this is half correct, because the enzymes which are present inside mitochondria are located in the mesosomes, the inward progressions of the cell membrane in case of bacteria, and therefore some bacteria are able to undergo aerobic respiration also. Now since here oxygen is present, therefore oxidation of food is complete. In case of anaerobic respiration, oxygen is absent and therefore oxidation is incomplete. Now, coming to the different examples, or rather different organisms where each of these two types of respiration occur. Aerobic respiration occurs in all higher animals like humans, other different mammals, reptiles and fishes. Anaerobic respiration occurs in only a small minority of organisms, certain bacteria and fungi. Plants, they also generally undergo, or rather major part of the plant undergoes aerobic respiration. In case of human beings, body is respiring aerobically, but during vigorous muscular activity, anaerobic respiration is resorted to, because at that time oxygen is not able to reach to the muscle cells fast for complete oxidation to occur. For example, when you are running very fast. At that time, anaerobic respiration will occur in your muscle cells. How it will occur, that we will deal with later. Now, whether the respiration is aerobic or anaerobic, it is the cytoplasm which is always involved in the respiratory process, and therefore the first process of both the types of respiration starts in cytoplasm. Aerobic respiration will continue in mitochondria also, but anaerobic respiration will stop in cytoplasm itself. Now, so overall we can say that the first process of respiration is common to both aerobic as well as anaerobic organisms, or another term for aerobic and anaerobic organisms are aerobes and anaerobes. So for them, this first process which is occurring common to both the type of organisms is referred to as glycolysis. Previously also, I have made it a point for you to understand the meaning of every term. Here again we get a term glycolysis. Lysis or lysis means breakdown. Glyco, carbohydrate. So glycolysis is basically breakdown of simplest carbohydrate, that is glucose. In this process, a molecule of glucose is broken down to produce 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. And overall, there are 10 steps that lead to the formation of 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. In the first step, glucose 6-phosphate is formed by utilizing enzyme glucokinase. In the second step, similarly we have a long list of steps. We can just put them in short over here. Glucose leads to formation of glucose 6-phosphate. This glucose 6-phosphate is isomerized to form fructose 6-phosphate. Now fructose is another form of glucose only. In fact, it is an isomer of fructose. So fructose 6-phosphate, and then one more molecule of phosphate is added, and we get fructose 1,6-biphosphate. Bi meaning 2. Now from here we get dihydroxyacetone phosphate, which gets converted to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Now there are 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Till here we have one molecule, 6 carbon. Glucose is 6 carbon, glucose 6-phosphate is 6 carbon, fructose is 6 carbon, fructose 1,6-biphosphate is 6 carbon, but glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is 3 carbon. Now this glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is converted into 1,3-biphosphoglycerate. Again 2 molecules. Why? Because it is a 3-carbon compound. From 1,3-biphosphoglycerate, we get 3-phosphoglycerate, that is 1 phosphate is lost. From 3-phosphoglycerate, we get 2-phosphoglycerate. 2-phosphoglycerate lead to formation of phosphoenol pyruvate. And finally, these are also 2 molecules. Finally, to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid, or simply pyruvate, because it is the pyruvate ion. For acid, H+ ion is present. Now, at each step, certain enzymes are involved. Whenever phosphate is added, we have an enzyme known as kinase. Kinase is something associated with kinetics, that is movement, and for movement we require energy, and in case of living organism, energy is derived from the breakdown of phosphate like ATP to ADP. So every time we have, the enzyme will be glucokinase. Now glucose is converted to fructose, so this is simple isomerism, so the enzyme is isomerase. Again we'll have a kinase, but since the enzyme, the molecule on which this kinase will be acting is fructose 6-phosphate, so the enzyme is phosphofructokinase. Phosphofructo for phosphate and fructase, phosphofructokinase. So again we have kinase. Now here the names of these enzymes are being written in short because they'll require a large space to be written, so I'm writing them in short. Now, so first kinase, then isomerase, another kinase, then fructose 1,6-phosphate getting converted to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, we have aldolase. Aldolase, then we have NADH, NAD getting converted to NADH. Then there are certain phosphoglycerate kinase again here, because we get a 3-phosphate, third position phosphate, 1-phosphate. Again we'll have a kinase here. Then phosphoglycerate, we are losing here a molecule of phosphate. So from 1,3-biphosphoglycerate we get 3-phosphoglycerate. So it will be phospho, again minus kinase, then phosphoglycerate, this will be a sort of isomerism from 3-phosphoglycerate to 2-phosphoglycerate. So we'll have malase, then enolase, and finally we have pyruvate kinase, which convert glucose finally to pyruvic acid. In 10 steps this process is being completed, and overall the process is referred to as glycolysis. Why? Because from one molecule of glucose is getting broken down, or it is getting transformed to form 2 molecules of pyruvic acid or pyruvate. Once glycolysis is complete, then depending on the type of respiration occurring, aerobic or anaerobic, further reactions will continue. Once glycolysis is completed, then depending on whether respiration is aerobic or anaerobic, we have different pathways which are taken by this pyruvic acid or pyruvate to finally convert to the end product. In case of yeast, the most famous organism for fermentation, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Now in this case the respiration is anaerobic, and this anaerobic respiration is referred to as fermentation. Fermentation is the process of anaerobic respiration which leads to formation of mainly carbon dioxide, and this leads to the rise in the volume of the substrate. Its uses we'll discuss a little later, but first we stick to fermentation. Now fermentation, the process will occur in the cytoplasm. So it occurs in cytoplasm. Here the molecule of pyruvate, which is obtained from glucose, gets converted into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. Since we are considering the main product, that is glucose, and the end product, so we can say from a molecule of glucose we get ethanol or ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. Reaction C6H12O6 getting converted to 2C2H5OH plus 2CO2 plus definitely energy. Now, how much energy? Whatever energy is being released is being released in the process of glycolysis, not when pyruvate gets converted to ethanol. So, since in case of glycolysis only 2 molecules of ATP are being produced, so overall a molecule of glucose is broken down to produce 2 molecules of ethyl alcohol plus 2 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 2 molecules of ATP. Now, if we look at the end products of yeast fermentation, we see we are getting ethyl alcohol, we are getting carbon dioxide. Now, both these products are very important, and therefore yeast is used in a large number of industries. The two main industries which utilize yeast are bakeries and breweries. Bakeries use it because yeast is providing carbon dioxide. Breweries are using because it provides ethyl alcohol. Now, brewery is the term or the industry where alcohol is being manufactured. Bakery, where different bakery products like bread and cakes are being produced. Why we are using it? Because the carbon dioxide which is being released gets trapped within the dough, and this leads to the rising of dough, and because of this rising of dough you see small holes within the bread, that airy nature of bread. Why are those small, how those small holes are being formed? When the dough rises, when yeast undergoes fermentation, then it produces a large amount of carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide gets trapped between the dough molecules, and when it is baked, the carbon dioxide escapes, but those blank spaces which are left within the dough, they remain as such, and this makes the bread soft and fluffy. In case of breweries, it is the ethyl alcohol which is being used as the end product. There, carbon dioxide escapes into the atmosphere and we are left with alcohol. Now, one thing that should come to your mind now is, in baking also, apart from carbon dioxide, alcohol is also being utilized. So, are our breads and cakes containing alcohol? The answer is very little amount or no. Why no? Because once it is baked, it is heated, then alcohol also evaporates at high temperature. So alcohol is lost, carbon dioxide is lost, and what we are left with is a soft and fluffy bread. Different alcoholic drinks are being manufactured in breweries. The second type of anaerobic respiration occurs in our muscle cells. In our muscle cells also, anaerobic respiration occurs, but this process is not known as fermentation because carbon dioxide is not being produced. Now, why it occurs in our muscle cells? Because although we are an aerobic organism, the answer is, when we are undergoing vigorous muscular activity, our muscles are in constant motion. They are constantly working, they are requiring more and more amount of energy. Glucose is present in the muscle cells, but a constant supply of oxygen as much as needed is not being made available to the muscle cells, because the blood keeps on moving at its own pace. It will take in oxygen from the lungs, then via heart it will reach the muscle cells. So it's a long pathway, and that much of oxygen is lacking, but the muscles require energy. So what they do in the cytoplasm itself, the pyruvate which is produced as the end product of glycolysis gets converted to form lactic acid. So here the conversion is glucose to pyruvate to lactic acid. From one molecule of glucose, you get 2 molecules of pyruvate, resulting in formation of 2 molecules of lactic acid. Now this lactic acid, since incomplete oxidation has occurred, it starts accumulating in the muscle cells, and this causes a oxygen debt. Now this oxygen debt, that is whatever oxygen is lacking, gets replaced, because when more and more oxygen, after you stop the muscular activity, then the oxygen keeps on moving at the same pace, and that lactic acid which was built up in the muscles is lost by and by. And what should we do so that the muscles, that pain which is there in the muscles stops? There are 2-3 things we do after vigorous muscular activity. One is deep breathing. Now when we take deep breaths inside, we are actually taking in more air inside, that is more oxygen being available to the blood cells, which in turn will take that oxygen to the muscles. The second method is rubbing that muscular part. Now after running or any work which requires any part of your body muscles to be used up, that part needs to be rubbed or it needs to be massaged. Again, this rubbing, what it does, it spreads out the lactic acid from muscle cells to nearby cells. Thereby, each cell gets a reduced oxygen debt, which can be repaid at a very faster rate. The third method we adopt is going for a hot water bath. Again, this hot water bath, that hot water which falls on the body, it also balances or spreads that lactic acid from muscle cells to the nearby cells, reducing the oxygen debt and reduction in the cramps. Lactic acid production also leads to formation of only 2 molecules of ATP, because after pyruvate is formed, no further energy is being formed. Only this pyruvate gets converted to lactic acid. Now we move on to the second type of respiration, which is known as aerobic respiration. This aerobic respiration is completed in mitochondria. The process requires oxygen. 2 processes occur within the mitochondria. First is Krebs cycle. The other is electron transport. Just like glycolysis was a 10-stepped series of reactions, same way Krebs cycle is a 8-stepped cyclic reaction which leads to formation of 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. And oxygen is utilized during electron transport. Overall, aerobic respiration is utilized to produce 38 molecules of ATP. So C6H12O6 plus 6 molecules of oxygen produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water plus 38 molecules of ATP. Large number of energy, in fact 19 times more energy is being produced by aerobic respiration than through anaerobic respiration. Krebs cycle leads to production of lesser energy, but it is the electron transport ultimately which gives us the 36 ATP molecules from one molecule of glucose within the mitochondria. So overall we can say, if we have to write an overview of the two types of respiration that occur, we can say that glucose leads to formation of pyruvate plus 2 molecules of ATP. This pyruvate in yeast cells forms ethyl alcohol plus carbon dioxide, lesser energy. In case of muscle cells, it forms lactic acid, less energy. But in presence of oxygen, it forms carbon dioxide and water and more energy. In fact, most energy. Now this energy which is being released, it is released by either the the breakdown of phosphate bonds, and ultimately the energy is used to synthesize the molecules of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of cell. So whenever we need energy, we spend it. Whenever we have more energy, we store it. ATP is stored. Now this was what happens within the cells, and overall we can say that oxygen, since anaerobic respiration occurs only in some parts of our body or only in a fraction of organisms, majority of organisms require oxygen. Now how this oxygen is being utilized, how this oxygen is reaching to different organisms. In case of plants, the process is known as diffusion, which occurs through stomata and also through general leaf surface and lenticels. Now, from where the molecule will move to where? Now, since in case of environment or atmosphere, oxygen concentration is more, so it will move from air to inside the plant. Because you know, diffusion, a process wherein the molecule moves from its position, from the place of its higher concentration to the place of its lower concentration. Oxygen is more in the atmosphere, so it moves inside the leaves. Carbon dioxide is more inside the leaf or inside the plant, so it moves outside the plant. But during daytime, whatever carbon dioxide is being released during respiration gets used up by the plant for the process of photosynthesis. In daytime, the carbon dioxide is utilized for photosynthesis, and only it is the oxygen which comes out and is released in the atmosphere. At night, the oxygen from atmosphere is taken in by the plant parts to carry out respiration. In case of animals, we have two types of animals. Certain animals living on land, that is terrestrial animals. The other animals living within water, that is aquatic animals. So terrestrial animals, they utilize the oxygen present in atmosphere. Aquatic animals utilize the oxygen which is present in dissolved form in the water they are living. Now how this oxygen actually reaches to inside the part of the body, again the process of diffusion is present. Now in case of aquatic animals, the percentage or amount of oxygen which is dissolved is less as compared to the amount of oxygen present in air, Therefore, aquatic organisms have to take in more and more air from their environment, that is from the water in which they are living. So therefore their rate of breathing becomes higher as compared to land animals. For now, everywhere diffusion is occurring, whether it is a plant or an animal, but the surface which is involved in this exchange of gases, also known as breathing, that surface should have certain features. The first is it should be large. Now look at the leaf, it is flat. The whole surface on top and bottom, mostly it's the bottom part where stomata is present, where direct air can enter, but from upper surface also diffusion will occur. So large surface area, more the area, more will be the rate of diffusion. Second is walls should be thin. When walls are thin, then obviously the process will become faster. The third property should be extensive network. In case of animals, like humans, from lungs, it is the blood which takes up oxygen, and this blood travels to all the parts of the body so that the gas oxygen can be provided to all the parts of our body, and carbon dioxide can be thrown out at a faster rate. So extensive network. And last, this surface should be present within the body. Now why this surface from where the exchange of gases is occurring should be within the body is so that it remains protected. For example, in human beings, we have got the respiratory surface in the form of alveoli present within our lungs. Now these alveoli, they are very minute structures and they provide very large surface area. Just like villi which were present within the lungs, they provided a very large surface area. Same way the alveoli also provide a large surface area. And each of the alveolus is surrounded by a number of blood vessels so that there is a complete faster exchange of gases occurring and the blood is able to take that oxygen directly to all parts of the body. Human respiratory system starts from the nose till the lungs. And if we look at the movement of gases right from environment to the lungs and back to the environment. So oxygen rich blood is derived from the environment. It is taken in through the nasal cavities, that is our nose. From the nose it reaches to our pharynx. From pharynx to trachea, which is also known as the windpipe. From trachea to bronchi. Now, trachea is one single tube. This gets divided into two because we have got two lungs. So, this is trachea and these two are bronchi. Bronchi leads to bronchioles. Bronchiole are, now bronchi, they will form other network within the lungs. then with these bronchioles, again these bronchiole end up in large air cavities known as alveoli. So from bronchioles to alveoli. Now it is the alveoli where the exchange of gases occurs. The oxygen is taken in by the blood and carbon dioxide is given to alveoli. So exchange of gases occurs in alveoli. From alveoli, this path is repeated back. Again, it will go to bronchioles. Now, the air which will grow to bronchioles, it will be rich in carbon dioxide. So, this is rich in oxygen. So, now from alveoli to bronchioles, rich in carbon dioxide. From bronchioles to bronchi, rich in carbon dioxide. Bronchioles to bronchi to trachea, trachea to pharynx, pharynx to nose or nasal cavity, and then back to the environment where this carbon dioxide is being released. This is the complete respiratory system of man. But this, although it is called the respiratory system, but actually it is the system which is involved in breathing. That is exchange of gases between environment and the part of the body. Now, in case of human, but still we call it respiratory system because it is from there then the oxygen reaches to individual cells where the actual process of respiration occurs, and that part is referred to as cellular respiration. So, overall this process of respiration can be divided, or it can be said that it has got two stages. One is gaseous exchange and the other is cellular respiration. Why we call it cellular respiration? Because the process occurs within each and every individual cells, and this exchange of gases is referred to as breathing. As far as human respiratory system is concerned, there are certain checks which help us in taking in the best of the environmental air. For example, our nostrils, they are lined with hair. These hairs have the ability to check in the passage of any large particles and act as a sort of filter. There is mucus also present within our nose which acts as one, water repellent, second, dust repellent, and in case any microbe enters, the mucus takes in that microbe within it and kills it because it is water resistant, so microbe won't be able to live without water. In case of trachea, the windpipe, this trachea is surrounded by rings of cartilage. They are shaped like C. C-shaped rings of cartilages are present within the trachea, and that is why when you feel it like this, you feel something hard. Now, why these rings of cartilage are present? Because trachea in itself is a very soft tissue, so it can collapse. That is, it can close. But that trachea is supported by these C-shaped rings of cartilage which ensure that it doesn't collapse. It cannot get inside. It remains as such distended, so the windpipe remains open for the movement of gases. Third, the alveoli present within our lungs, they are in large amount and their large number ensures very large surface for exchange of gases. Last, our alveoli, they are just single cell thick. As we talked before, the wall should be very thin, single cell thick, and the lining of our blood vessels, the capillaries which surround the alveoli, they are also single cell thick. So it's just the cell of the alveoli. Like if this is the alveolus, single celled, not very thick, which will ensure quick exchange. And also the blood capillary which surrounds it, it is also single celled thick. So that just two cells are present for exchange of gases. And what exchange occurs? What comes in from alveoli is oxygen, and what gets into alveoli is carbon dioxide from the blood. So, internal cellular respiration, external breathing. Now, this mechanism of breathing present in humans in itself can be divided into two stages. As we have seen just now, one is the movement inside the body, the other is movement outside the body. When we take in air, the process is known as inhalation. Now, in means coming inside, and when air is thrown out of the body, it is known as exhalation. Exhale, X means out. Inhale, take in, exhale, throw out. Overall, our torso is, if we look at a rough structure, the human torso can be divided into two parts. One which contain our lungs, and the one beneath it. So this is a muscular diaphragm. The cavity above diaphragm is known as the chest cavity. The one below the diaphragm is known as the abdominal cavity. That is abdomen. Now when we have to inhale, when we have to take in air, at that time the diaphragm contracts and it moves down. Now when it moves down, the volume of the chest cavity increases. As a result, low pressure is created, which leads to taking in of air from the environment. And when we exhale, this diaphragm relaxes, it moves up, and when it moves up, high pressure is created within the chest cavity and leads to the movement outside, towards outside the body. And that is why the correct method of breathing for us is, when we inhale, our stomach or abdomen should go in, and when we exhale, it should come out. I'm sorry, I'm saying the opposite. When we inhale, the stomach should go in, and when we exhale, it should come out. In case of unicellular organism, the exchange of gases occurs through the cell surface. In large organisms, this diffusion will take a very long time, and that is why we have got these systems just like we have the respiratory system in case of man. But then also, once the air has moved to inside the body, then also it needs a medium, the oxygen needs a medium for it to be transported to each and every cell for quick diffusion, for quick movement. Because if diffusion only would be the process, then from outside the body to the cell which is present in the interior most of our body, it will take 25 years for movement of a single molecule of oxygen. But we cannot live for a few moments without oxygen. So there should be a method, and that method is a pigment known as hemoglobin. This hemoglobin has great affinity towards oxygen. So it forms a complex known as oxyhemoglobin and carries it to different parts of the body. The carbon dioxide which is being produced dissolves in the plasma of the blood and moves towards the heart, from where it goes to the lungs, where actual exchange of gases occurs. Very little amount of carbon dioxide gets associated with hemoglobin and forms carbamino hemoglobin, but that is again a transient molecule being formed for a very short time. In case we sleep in a room which is closed from all the sides, then we suffer from what is known as asphyxia, and especially if there is a wood or coal burning nearby, then carbon monoxide gets formed by that burning process, not carbon dioxide, because oxygen is not readily available. So if we inhale that carbon monoxide, this carbon monoxide has more affinity with hemoglobin than oxygen, and that forms a permanent molecule known as carboxyhemoglobin, which is very difficult to break down, and this results in what we call carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning is caused when this carbon monoxide, which is inhaled by us, combines with hemoglobin, and ultimately it can even lead to the death of the individual. We will continue with the next process, that is transportation, in our next lecture, and for previous lectures you can join me on my YouTube, Facebook and Instagram accounts. Thank you.